Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right, welcome to episode 416 of my live stream. Today I'm going to be coloring page 154 of Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Gary Hodges is listening from the gym. Let me see if I can find something here. There's got to be something goofy I can play. They have these like stock songs on here. Do they have a, I don't know if this works. This is Gary Hodges work at the gym. He was at the gym working out very hard. Working the muscles. This is Gary Hodges' workout music soundtrack. To pump the iron to. Did that work? I don't know. I was... anyhow, I tried. I tried to give you some lift music. All right, so today what I'm going to be working on is coloring page 154. No Eye of the Tiger. Let me see. There's got to be something like that. You need to pump the iron, Gary. I recently rewatched that Pumping Iron movie. That is hilarious and amazing. Alright guys, we're working out at the gym and listening to music. How'd that work? This is more like the AM radio. Welcome to AM radio. I'm your host, Joshua Kemble, and today we're going to make comics. Did that work? I don't know. That's my attempt at Eye of the Tiger without getting demonetized. Okay, so here we go. We're going to work. If you notice that I have gum in my mouth, it's because I am chewing nicotine gum, trying to quit the bad habits that I've had for multiple years. And so far successful. All right, let's get into this. Let's get into coloring this page. So I'm going to just start coloring, and we're going to talk, guys. We're going to hang out one-on-one. Hold on a sec. Let me see if I can find this. I'm kind of digging this like fake music slot thing. Let's see here. Alright guys, we're gonna have a wild time coloring comics. Ooh, yeah. Should I talk like that? Like, would you guys still listen to the stream if the whole time I was just doing like an AM radio voice kind of thing? I need to get a bunch of like different sound effects that I can punch, you know? Like an air horn and stuff. Speaking of AM radio stuff, I am still kind of tuning into the Dodger game. The Dodgers are currently it's the bottom of the fifth, and we're losing to Boston at this point. Boston's at 3, LA is at 2. So if you're from Boston, you're probably happy about that. I am not. Okay, let's go. Felt like we had good momentum. We're kind of the comeback kings generally. But not the best. Not the worst, not the best. So far, not looking so great, not looking so bad. We'll see. It's a 1-point difference. All right. So here's what we're gonna do. I am going to get this colored. We're gonna color this entire stinking page. Okay. Generally, when I color, I start with like an overall size. I try to kind of not include in my flat coloring space the shape of the word balloons, because the word balloons themselves I can then go under my flat colors. See what I'm saying? I can go under my flat colors. Let's turn off our right, and then I can actually make selections and fill that separately so that when I'm done, I don't have to constantly be dodging those little areas. Don't know quite what I was doing there, but we'll make this work. So I'm going to find the areas that need those flat colors. Here's a question. Do you listen to music when you work out at the gym? Another question for Gary in particular. I am like, I have never been a gym guy. Like, I can't do, like, when I've had to go on business trips and stuff, I've definitely used like hotel gyms and stuff. But I find the best way for me to exercise is just having equipment at my own house. Because, like, I just can't. I don't know. Gyms just kind of freak me out. However, I do have a really close friend who goes every morning locally here. And he's, like, been like, we should go. And I've thought about it, but it's just like, I don't know. I feel like if I have to do a gym, I'm going to use that as an excuse to not work out. Because then I got to get ready, and there's like 5 more steps of complexity. Gary said, music, podcast, or streams. I can't do silence. Yeah, I tend to, like, I'll put on podcasts quite often, or live streams. But for some reason, like, I don't know, like, I can't put on, like, I guess I'm just not, like, a gym rat type of guy, because it's like, I can't imagine myself putting on, like, Rage Against the Machine and, like, working out to it. I just can't. I'm sorry. Yeah, you know? I know people who, like, that gets them, like, really pumped up and stuff, but, like, for me, that just would feel cheesy, and then I don't know. Anyhow, it's interesting. To me, not to anyone else. All right. We're going to do some deselection here, where I'm going to basically go through, select anything that is white, and then we're getting rid of it from my selection. So we got like her white rose, all of that stuff, the eyes, that kind of stuff. I'm going to talk about climbing trees, guys. When I was younger, my family was renting a house, right? And it was like a 2-story house. Really nice house in a really bad neighborhood. And part of the only way we could afford it was the landlord was like a friend of my dad's, and so he like hooked us up with like cheap rent. Anyhow, at this house there's a tree and it's 2 stories high. Gary said, "No, I don't do workout music, just whatever I'm normally listening to." I mean, I could definitely understand if there's like something like I can work out and listen to stuff. I think it would be hard to work out when listening to like This American Life. You know? I mean, there is some stuff that's like so kind of low, like so chill in vibe that it could, you know, disrupt the flow of your workout, you know? I feel like Ira Glass would be up there with, I don't know if I could work out to Ira Glass. But yeah, I don't think I could work out to like Eye of the Tiger. Jokingly, I could definitely like do that. Anyhow, so like we had this like 2-story tall tree. It was like actually more like 3 or 4 stories tall. Like it was a huge tree in our backyard, and I had figured out a way to climb the tree so that I could like hang out and talk to my sisters from like the 2nd story window to the tree. And this just kind of seemed normal at the time. Like people just climbed trees. I don't see that a lot anymore. I don't see kids climbing trees a lot anymore. It's kind of a weird thing. I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, do kids still climb trees? And then I thought about it, and I'm like, I'd be pretty, like, I don't know if this makes me like a helicopter parent or something, but like, I would feel really freaked out if my son climbed a tree and was like up 2 stories. You know? And this is now funny because I didn't even connect the irony of of it being 2 stories and my comic being called 2 stories. That was like a level of meta I was not intending, but it's kind of funny now that I think about it. But anyhow, I wonder, does that make me like an overly protective parent that I'd feel concerned if my son climbed a tree that was like 2 stories tall? Or does that just mean in the 80s parents were just kind of like, whatever. Drink water from the hose. Like, you know. Be out till the lights go out. Yeah, I don't know. GZ DRF. Oh man, I don't even know. It's Gizder Forever. Anyhow, said, in honor of Hulk Hogan, will you draw a picture of him tearing his shirt? I would, but I have to do this. That does sound fun, but I'd have to do this. And I feel like if I was going to do, like, don't get me wrong, Hulk Hogan was rad up until his last few years, where he was questionable. But if I was drawing a tribute right now, it'd probably be to Ozzy. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of weird. Like, one of the interesting things about kind of getting older is you do have what is it? The cliche of like death looms out the door kind of thing, where you do have heroes and people who seemed kind of untouchable. Not that they're like maybe a generation before what I would consider in this packet, but like groups of people you never really would have envisioned, you know, getting older. You see it happen, you know. Scott said, I saw one of Gaz's videos where he was watching his daughter climb a tree, so apparently it still happens. Nice. I don't know. I'm just wondering, does that make me a bad parent that I don't know if I'd want my son climbing a tree like 2 stories tall at his age right now. When he's older, maybe, but it is funny in the 80s just thinking about what we did as kids. I think there was like a book about it a while ago too, where people were talking about parents getting a little too protective and stuff. But it is interesting. It's like, has the culture changed, or has just our like parenting styles changed, or have people just gotten way worse? Because like the weird thing is, when I was a kid growing up in this area wasn't as bad as it is now in specific parts of town. So the idea of like bicycling around town, like, because when I was a kid, I used to take my bike like everywhere. My bike was like freedom. And so I would literally like bike across town, like, just miles and miles and miles, till basically it got dark. And it's a weird thing, because I'm like, were things still not as safe as they are now? Like, have things gotten worse around this area, or have like all of us just gotten way more paranoid, or have people just become a little more realistic about like the threats that are out there? It's kind of a weird thing to kind of think about. But I'm glad Gaz's kid is climbing a tree. Yeah, navigating social media unsupervised is scarier than climbing a 2-story tree. 100%. I think the biggest threat to the modern era, at least I've witnessed this as a teacher, is like, I think the biggest threat to the next generation of kids is phones. I think cell phones are just crazy. And I think if you talk to like any teacher teaching kids in high school, I think they'd say the same thing. Like, phones are, like, kids have a scary addiction to phones nowadays. And I mean like it's like an addiction, not like it's not quite like when I was a kid, I played Nintendo and stuff like that, and I was slightly addicted to my Nintendo, but like, this is like people who like are so hooked on their phones, they're like, it's almost like if they lost their phone, it's almost like cutting off their arm, like that level of addiction, where it's it's this very disruptive, distracting device that is like all consuming, and I think it can be real dangerous. I think that's probably the biggest threat to kids right now, even more than social media, obviously, for sure. But I think that's probably the biggest threat, is just which is kind of weird, because it's got positives too, like anything, right? Like we have access to like all the information in the world at our fingertips, and we have this amazing tool. Like, a phone is a really incredible tool. But it's just like crazy how bad people get addicted to it, like almost like a drug or something. It's wild when you see it. And at their own detriment, like any addiction, right? Where I'm kicking an addiction right now, and it's like, I have nicotine gum. What's the nicotine gum for phone addiction? It's like, I don't think there is a withdrawal kind of thing from that. But I also know that since I was a kid, like, adults have always freaked out about technology, and always, like, we've always had like a group of out-of-touch adults, which, by the way, I'm now probably one of, who freaked out about technology and been like, this is going to rot children's brains. I mean, I remember hearing that about, Nintendo back in the day. And television, where they'd be like, these kids are watching so much television, it's going to rot their brains, So maybe this is just like a current version of that. But I do think there's a unique threat posed with just like the reward systems that that are in phones, and just the way apps are designed for addictive behavior. I think that might be one of the worst things. And then the fact that like modern society is going to be pretty much structured around everybody having these things, so it's not like you can not teach these things. But I do think it's probably good to like touch grass and that kind of stuff. Gary said we have access to all the world's knowledge. Yes, but we aren't reading the great books and teaching ourselves a second or third language. We argue and watch cat videos. I wouldn't let my kid have one. Yeah, my kid has a like an iPad and stuff, but it's very like locked down. I don't think by the time he's in high school, I don't think we're gonna let him have a phone. I just don't. Like I know there's like concern for parents and stuff about contacting your kids at that age and they're young adults, but it's like I feel like that I can see a measurable difference in kids' performances in school based on their cell phone usage. Like kids that are really addicted to their cell phones tend to have trouble like passing classes because their attention span isn't there. They're like split focus. And I mean, I can't blame them, right? Like I imagine if like when I was in high school, this is going to make me sound old, but like pagers were a thing, right? But they were banned on campus. And so like if you were a kid using a pager and your pager went off in class, like dude, you were freaked out because you're like, crap, I'm going to lose my pager, right? Like they just take it away from you. Like you couldn't use it. But in California, it's bizarre because the cell phone usage thing is just like, there was like a law that basically said like kids can just have phones like without getting them confiscated in school. And so it's just like this weird thing where you see it directly affect, kids. Because it's like how if when I was in high school I could have had a Game Boy in class and just played Game Boy like without getting in trouble, man, I would have been like, I don't think I would have passed high school because I really liked Game Boy. It was fun, and I hadn't really developed at that age you haven't really developed a lot of like thinking ahead, right? That's something you kind of develop, I think, at an older age, is like the ability to discern like a year from now, what is this going to look like, right? I think that kind of back planning and stuff like that, that's something that I don't think most people develop until, like the ability to back plan. I really think like you probably don't develop that until you're like in your early 20s, maybe mid 20s. So that's kind of a weird one. But I was talking about this the other day too, where before we had access to like every kind of music. Oh no, Boston's up at 4 now, and the Dodgers are at 2. What are you doing, Dodgers? Anyhow, so the thing I was talking about yesterday was, like when like before the internet, like the finding bands or finding artists or finding books that you really enjoyed felt more sacred because you really had to work for it. Like in a weird way, it's not like you just had, all the knowledge at your fingertips and could, with a quick Google search, like listen to any kind of music on the planet. You had to kind of seek it out. And so when you found something that you connected with, there was like a real connection because it's like it's a scarce thing. It's a sacred object kind of thing. There is something about the internet that kind of dilutes that, partially just by the access of all information. It's like by having access to everything, we start kind of knowing nothing. And so that's a concern. But it's an interesting, it is an interesting kind of weird little conundrum we find ourselves in. But I by no means have like a real solution to it, because I do think phones are overall like, a pretty cool capability and stuff like that. But I do think there's definitely some evolutionary effects of that I don't think we're aware of, That being said, my son on his iPad can do animations. Like, he'll make animations or he'll program video games, and it's like stuff like that is incredible, and we've never had that. Kids have never had that possibility before, where it's like, I want to make a video game, and they actually do. So there's some incredible stuff with it as well, but it's just like the potential downsides of that are pretty scary. I actually think the over access to information also allows for the proliferation of like some pretty wild conspiracy theories that in the past weirdly would have been like publicly shamed out of people. I know that's kind of silly to say, but it's like back in the day, dude, if you met like a flat earther, like if somebody was a flat earther, it'd be like a strange person you came across, and they would get kind of like socially shunned, and quite often they would feel like pretty alone, And so you'd have like these conspiracy theories that like came out and then died fairly quickly because there just wasn't like community to proliferate it. And if there were communities, it was like you had to be pretty out there to be like, I'm going to travel to this place to like go to this conspiracy theory group meeting, Whereas now it's like you can have any crazy belief in the world and find community for it to kind of validate your opinions. And so I think it causes the proliferation of like some pretty strange ideas, and it kind of waters down truth, Because we are definitely in a day and age where if I wanted to just invent some crazy idea, let's say one day I'm suffering from psychosis or something, and I decide that the earth is a triangle or a pyramid, I could probably find like within like 10 minutes of searching online something to validate that the earth is a pyramid. It wouldn't be that hard to find. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like back in the day, these were like on the edge kind of ideas. And I think that's why they were kind of charming when I was younger. Like you'd listen to like a radio show with a conspiracy theorist or something on AM radio late at night when you're like driving through the desert or something, and it'd be kind of fun and spooky, But it was also fun and spooky because it was an oddity. It wasn't finding community to the point where it could fester. So then that's another weird thing about the internet where I feel like we're in a lucky scenario. Like to me, it's really cool. Like when I started doing comics, it was a pretty lonesome thing to undertake early on. Hi, Dylan. Dylan just joined. Gary also said, I've thought about getting just a mobile phone, as in no smart features. Yeah, but there are some really convenient things, But like one of the cool things about the internet is like community building, right? Where you're like when I first started making comics, dude, like there was, it was just a very isolating feeling. And until you went to like a comic convention or something, you pretty much just kind of felt pretty alone. And you're like pretty much like sitting at a drawing table, just, kind of like fighting loneliness the whole time you're working on comics. And what I'm doing now is like that wasn't even possible back then, and I think that's a net positive um, where I can work on something like a comic, but I can hang out with people, live and still get work done. Like it's a very unique thing of the age we live in. So that's one of the net positives. But one of the net negatives of finding community is you can find community for a lot of weird stuff that I feel like we evolved to kind of tamper down. Like there are things about, like, I'm a very punk rock person and I like the idea of thinking outside of crowds and stuff like that. But there is like there's a survival mechanism to some beliefs that it's important that everybody buys into. And if you have communities that start kind of denying the entire fabric of reality, you can have like a complete breakdown of like societal norms that are actually really beneficial to humanity. So some societal norms are like ridiculous and stupid, but some of them help propagate and save the species, right? And it's like when you start allowing truth to erode and then communities to build around just like nonsense, like irrational nonsense, then you end up with some really like physically and very dangerous ideas to proliferate to an extent that you just didn't have back in the day. Like you didn't really, I guess bad ideas proliferate for sure, but it's like the instant access to find people to validate whatever kind of wacky belief you want to have is a uniquely, it's just, you know what it is? It's not unique, it's uniquely quick now. Like finding community for that isn't a unique thing, but the ability, the ease with which you can validate any wacky kind of quack theory you want to throw out there is a really unique and scary thing about the times we live in. Where bad ideas can spread and proliferate like really quickly. Dylan said, excuse me. Dylan said a dumb phone, as my gen calls them. I've looked into that, Gary. I kind of want to get a dumb phone, but I need Uber and other important apps for my lifestyle. Gary was saying I could just self-parent and delete some apps from my phone. Yeah, Dylan was saying, for instance, some plants are not edible to us. Otherwise, we get sick and die. Exactly. Yeah, like that's actually a really perfect example where there's some truths, some societal norms, like not eating the little red berries. Like I forget what those are called, but on the bushes when you're a kid, there's these little tiny red. I think they're like, I can't even remember what they're called, but they're like little red berries, and they're actually very poisonous. But they look pretty, and when you're a little kid, it looks really tasty, and then usually rely on the knowledge of an adult to come by and say, don't eat those berries, they'll kill you. And then also the trust that those institutions that are telling you that will kill you are not insane. But now it's like, in the case of those berries, like that example, like a poisonous berry, if I wanted to, I could probably find some insane community online that believes that they're not only are they you being lied to about the poison in these things, but also that they're actually really good for you. And then you end up with like a crazy death cult out there. That's kind of the scenario we live in, which has always existed, but just not to the extent and the quickness and efficiency with which that kind of thing can exist now, So that's like one of the most exciting and terrifying things about the time we live in, where ideas can propagate really quickly, and those could be good ideas too, but just the lack of vetting of information and the lack of curation and trusting institutions, and again, like I come from a punk background, so sure, second guess institutions, but if you erode institutions altogether, like, you get rid of some of the safeguards that have existed in society for years and really helped expand the human lifespan and really improve, our water supply and our food supply and like generally like help the flourishing of human beings. Some of those things can start to like go bad real fast. When you look at tribes in the Amazon or Amish communities, do you want them to modernize in terms of getting access to medicine, filtered water, or modern housing amenities? It depends. Like if here's the thing. If you're Amish, right, and one of your kids gets cancer, yeah, I do think you should modernize. Like, no offense, like I mean, it's but it's just like my own opinion would be like, yeah, you should probably take care of your health and that kid. Now being like disconnected from things and going like the Thoreau route, I think has a real benefit to it. But I do think there are definitely times where having a basis for fact is probably a good thing. And I think in a lot of those cases, I think most Amish people, if their kid was, diagnosed with cancer or something, they might approve like chemo treatments. You know what I mean? Like I think there are a lot of people, who would be okay with that. But I do think it can be real dangerous to kind of create kind of cults around denying reality. I think that can be real dangerous. And I'm sure there's positives to some of that too, but it's just, when you erode the very fabric of things we rely on as a society to like exist and coexist, it can be playing with fire. But anyhow, that's just one of the things that's interesting because, like, when I was a kid, if I had like a strange thought where I was like, and it was like a strange, unscientific idea, right? I could kind of think about it and then look into it and quite often rely on talking to kind of and getting a general consensus that like what I was saying was insane, right? Whereas now it's like you can find communities to just validate whatever insane thing you kind of want to claim because again, there's at least two other people with a forum somewhere or a Reddit somewhere that are going to validate what you think. So I do think it's pretty bad when it comes to, it can be really good for proliferating positive ideas and maybe shining light on outside ideas that are good. Like institutions aren't always trustworthy. And so having a spotlight on some of those like divergent thoughts and ideas is good. But it's like we shouldn't wholly embrace it and not be concerned about like the overall effect that eroding societal norms or truths can have. So it's like it's kind of a it's just an interesting thing that's very unique to the time we live in. All right. So we have and I'm just talking about like common knowledge stuff like my son's been taking, swimming lessons and stuff and like when you get out of a pool that has chlorine in it, you got to take a shower. You know what I mean? Like otherwise like your skin can get like really screwed up, right? You can get really bad like bacterial infections and stuff. It's like that's just basic science and I don't think that's a negative for society to kind of push that as an idea because it's just fact. It's like, you know, um, it's a scary world where we would like kind of not be okay with like that being just like a common thing to like learn. Gary was saying, yeah, 15% of the public believes in just about anything. Yeah, and the scary part is that 15% can very quickly grow to a larger percentage because, again, these communities can like find each other and then like egg each other on. Whereas like back in the day, a lot of that was like taken care of by like social pressures, and so some of that's bad and some of that's good. Like it's not like that's an entirely horrible thing because sometimes the majority are wrong. It's not like the majority is always right, but there is like an important part to survival of some societal norms, like basic stuff like if you're swimming in a pool with chlorine, don't just get out of it and not wash off that chlorine because your skin's gonna get screwed up. Does that make sense? Dylan said, I've become a bit more cautious because it's so easy now to fake results and spread the idea. Like that one blonde lady who wore black all the time became really popular and rich, but she faked all her findings. I don't know who that one blonde lady who wore black all the time is. I don't know who that is. Who's the one blonde lady who wore black all the time? You gotta explain what you're saying. And it's not like society's been immune to this. I mean, we've had, eras where, the general public thought, like witch trials were like a good idea and that witches were real and stuff, and like, so we've had some strange stuff happen in the past with this kind of thing, but it's just interesting that, with the advance of yeah, it's not like I'm saying anything profound here, but it does seem like anytime we advance technology, to kind of better humanity, there's always like a catch that makes things a little worse in some ways. So it's like we get these massive advances and benefits, but then there's always like a unforeseen like negative. Okay, guys, we're getting our colors done here. Actually, very much digging this. Uh, Gary said yes. The blood test, Holmes. Like, what do you? Wait, what? What? What's that? I'm sorry, I'm not following. Maybe I missed this, but it almost sounds like you were making a. Oh, Elizabeth Holmes. Okay, so she invented. See, I haven't heard of Elizabeth Holmes. So Dylan was saying it's this lady who said they invented a medical miracle. Well, I mean, there's a lot of like strange stuff in human history. One of the weirdest is like our old idea of like bloodletting. Do you remember this? Like, well, I mean, not from our lifetime, but it's like back in the medieval era where they'd be like, "Oh, you have a cold. We just have to like bleed you out for 5 years." Like it's, or even in this book, like, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, had stomach issues, and so they prescribed her laudanum, which is insane now. Where it's like, "Oh, you don't feel good? Here, have some opium." It's just like insane that's something people used to do. But I guess what's unique about the time we're in is like these bad ideas could kind of manifest and sort of spread, but there was like a progression to those ideas. Whereas now it's like it can happen like almost overnight because again, just to find validation, for whatever weird idea you want to believe, like it doesn't take more than like a Google search, a very specifically biased Google search. I feel like a lot of the time too nowadays, like when people do their research in quotes, the kind of people who'd say like do your research, um, Dylan was saying, if you saw her, I think you'd recognize her. Interesting. Um, yeah, I do feel like there is this weird tendency for people to have so much cognitive bias when they do their research. Like when they're searching in Google, they aren't saying like, um, an objective question. They're saying a very directed question that's like directing the search engine to find the skewed answer they want, right? So it'd be like instead of saying, what is this thing? It's, you'd Google, is this thing false? Or, um, I don't know, like where you're kind of searching for things with the agenda to find confirmation of whatever wacky idea you have. And I don't think there's been a time in history where you could more easily find confirmation of your biases. Like we're in an era where that's like really there. Dylan said raw milk has been becoming popular on TikTok within the last few months. Really? Raw milk, like, what do you mean by raw milk? Like milk that went bad? Or like, um, Dylan was saying, most people don't know how to research properly, calling myself out here as well. I try my best. Yeah. Um, Yeah, and it's like I'm back in, in college and stuff, and when I'm writing a paper, it's not like I can just trust like Chat GPT to like do my research for me. Because what you'll find is, you know, even using a tool like Chat GPT, which wasn't around when I was originally in school, but you can kind of use it to like start finding sources, but you got to check every source that it spits out because about 80% of those sources don't exist, right? It's just kind of giving you weird stuff to try to fulfill whatever your query was. So you really have to be very meticulous about checking your sources and seeing if they actually exist and then also if they're reputable. But I think people have trouble even differentiating what is reputable because we're in a time where, again, because you can find communities that'll validate anything, even legitimate journalism and stuff is like under question. Like I think we've gotten to that kind of like a post-truth kind of world, which postmodernism is kind of predicted would happen. But what's fascinating to me is all the people who used to rail against postmodernism and the dangers of this exact thing happening, like the erosion of truth, not being able to kind of like have a basis of reliance on anything and basically ending up in like this nihilistic world where it's like anything could be true. That used to be a warning that came from the right like all the time about postmodernism and the dangers of postmodernism. And what's funny is back when I used to hear this from right wingers, I never would have predicted that their warning would actually be something that came from that same side that was like supposedly sounding the alarm for the dangers of postmodernism. They actually kind of fell into it where it's like, well, who knows? That's your truth and this is my truth. I hear that way more often from people on the right nowadays than I do from people on the left, where it's like, well, you believe in your truth and I'll believe in mine. This kind of erosion of truth has really taken over. Like, yeah, it's kind of a wild thing. Anyhow, I'm just rambling, but it's an interesting phenomenon. Dylan was saying not pasteurized, fresh from the cow, no additives. Is that safe? I don't know. I actually, that's one of those scenarios where I would need to do some research on that because I don't know if that's all that unhealthy. Um, I don't know. Because I do know, like, back in the day, people used to, have fresh milk from their own cow or something. But I do feel like if you're trying to do that on I guess it would probably depend if you were trying to do that on a level where it's like a whole group of cows. I think that's where it could get real dangerous. Because, like, if you're talking about 50 cows, making milk and stuff for a population, like I think that could be a little dangerous. Just doing fresh milk because you're gonna have a lot more disease potential. Like the more cows you can throw into the mix. Does that make sense? I feel like maybe with one cow with your own personal cow, that may not be a bad thing. Dylan was saying it is definitely not safe. Yeah. And again, like growing up, I had friends who had, like goats or whatever, and they do like fresh goat milk and stuff. And I don't think that's that bad when it's, on a small scale. But I do think like when you start thinking about doing that on a mass scale, like there's so many diseases that could lead to. But unfortunately, this is one of those things where I would not be an authority to talk about that. I haven't really looked much into it. I would imagine, it's probably not that safe, actually, now that I think about it. Because, like, that's almost equivalent to, like, let's go drink water fresh from the creek. And it's like, well, depending on that creek, like, whatever microbes are in that water and stuff, you might not be safe, like drinking water fresh from the creek. And somebody could be justifying that by being like, well, people have done that for years. And it's like, yeah, but like people also used to die of dysentery a lot. So, which doesn't really kill a lot of people anymore. So, maybe, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's like art's the same way. There's some times where like just throwing out tradition makes for really interesting stuff. And then there's times where like the traditions exist for a reason, like, learning, proportions and stuff like that. It's like it's not like the proportions change. It's not like there are some things that are just true. And I feel like you kind of have to hold to that, or you end up in like this dilemma of like negating the purpose of conversation altogether. Like if everything is true, then nothing is true. This is an old statement, but it's kind of one of those arguments against nihilism that you learn, when you first start getting into, like conversations of ethics or debate. Taking the nihilistic approach often just like negates the purpose of a conversation altogether. Man, the Dodgers are not looking good right now. It's 2-4, so Boston's still ahead, and they're in the top of the 8th. So my Dodgers need to get their closing thing on or lose again. Sometimes the like natural movement always cracks me up, where people will always like market things by saying this is natural, therefore it's good. I always feel like that's really strange because like poisons are natural. Like there's a lot of bad things that are all natural, like grizzly bears are very natural. It doesn't mean like a grizzly bear is the healthiest thing to like, you know what I mean? Like there's just things out there that are natural that aren't necessarily healthy or safe for you. Those berries that you're not supposed to eat as a kid, those are all natural, It's like that's not just because it's natural doesn't necessarily mean it's good, Dylan said the government wants to revisit asbestos. Oh man, I give up. What's next? Are they going to start like remixing lead into paint? Be like, I think that was a good idea. Actually, I think we should go back to it. Because I do feel like that's one of the dangerous things about again being able to find confirmation bias. You can find any wacky theory out there you want. And without the ability to like vet information, like, you know, it really does become like a nihilistic world you're living in where there's my truth and your truth and you live your truth and all of mine. But it's like some truths are really dangerous. Okay. Paul said, "Hi all, are we spicy today?" We got a bit spicy. We got a bit spicy. My last stream, I offended someone from the MAGA movement. But this stream, I'm just kind of rambling about. I don't know how we got on this topic, but I think it was just kind of talking about some of the positives and negatives of the community that's available with the internet. And, you know, on the plus side, you can find people with common interests, and that's really cool. On the negative side, if you have like a wacky idea that you want to validate, you can very easily find communities of people who will be like, yes, brother, I know exactly what you're saying. You're totally right. And like validate any crazy idea. So we're getting a little spicy, but not like crazy spicy. But we do have a mild spicy meatball. My son just ran to the kitchen, grabbed a little cheese stick, and then ran back. Cheese in hand. There's something really adorable about that age. Philip said, "Good evening. Just goes to show home from work, and I thought I'd pop in." Nice. Hi, Philip. How goes life, my dude? Haven't talked to Philip in a while. We're just hanging and working on comics together. We are one giant happy family. I was at the beginning of the stream too. I was also doing some AM radio soundtracks for Gary's gym visit. Let's see if we can recreate that real quick. Hold on a sec. Let me find that. Let's see. Welcome, Philip, to Joshua Kemble's live stream. We're going crazy with the AM radio voice. And today's Saturday, but tomorrow is Sunday. Sunday with monster truck racing. All day long, we're coloring comics. Wild, crazy colors. How was that? Did that work? I want to do like an AM radio version. It'd be funny to do a live art stream where I talk like that the entire time. I don't know if you guys would survive it though. I feel like somebody already dropped off from watching just from hearing that. They were like, I can't do this. Dylan said it had a little Stan Lee to it. Nice. Philip said, hey, I'm alive, I guess. Alive, I guess, isn't a... That doesn't sound good. But that's better than the alternative, right? Emphatically. Philip said, I don't think I've heard my name more emphatically announced. And then Dylan was saying, okay, I thought so. So Philip, I think that was about our MAGA friend. It always bums me out because, like, I don't mind Dee Dee as a person. I just think she's got to let it slide and chill that, like, not everybody's in agreement. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta be kind of cool with the idea that, like, other people don't agree with you, and that's okay. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. Paul said she must have come specifically to be offended. I can understand that. Yeah, it was definitely one of those. That tends to be the scenario, but it always kind of bums me out a little bit because I'm like, eh. Gary said there's a masochistic element to her visits. Well, it's just one of those things of like, when do you think I'm gonna roll over and be like, I'm sorry for offending? No, it's like I'm gonna say what I think, and yeah, I mean, if that's offensive, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna like back down on what I believe for like $1 donation or something. Um, yeah. Uh, Dylan said, my neighbor and her children are MAGA, but we still talk to each other and hang out. I know some people who are MAGA that I still talk to. Generally, I don't talk to them about politics because what I found is, um, it's funny because I've heard this like whole claim that, what I believe is very woke and that kind of stuff and that we're all fragile and stuff, but I have never met more fragile people than people who are kind of like Trump type folks. They tend to be really fragile and very like afraid of conversations that that even bring it up. Like they get very easily offended and like make everything political. That's always one of the weird ones too, where it's like, dude, I'm not even trying to make something political. I literally was like, I woke up today and the sky was blue, and you're like, oh, that's exactly what a liberal would say, and you're like, whoa, okay. Well, it's just like a liberal to say the sky's blue. Why is it not red, huh? Just because you're a blue Democrat, they get kind of triggered, is all I'm saying. Pretty easily triggered. Paul was saying, how much would it cost for you to pretend you're MAGA for a whole stream? I mean, for the bit of it, it might be funny. I almost feel like that might be worth it just for the social experiment. Because there is definitely a hustle you can do as an artist. Like, if you want to make money as an artist and you don't have ethics, like, that crowd is so easy to play if you wanted to. I'm just saying, you could probably make a pretty easy dime. Be like, I'm making art they don't want me to make because I'm talking about my beliefs and they can't handle my beliefs. I've been canceled left and right. Like, you just basically make it a thing where it's like you're the lone wolf against the libs, and there's a whole audience of people who like they wouldn't even care if what you were making was good. They would just be like, well, I gotta support this person to own the libs, like that kind of thing. So I do think it would be an interesting social experiment to almost like Stephen Colbert it or something, but like without letting people know that you're doing it as a bit. Do your live streams with like an eagle in the background and, wrap yourself in an American flag while you're drawing. Paul was saying, I love your MAGA voice, Josh. Thank you. Yeah. Philip was saying it's difficult, though. I have a lot of good friends down there I haven't seen in ages, but it's just not safe right now. Oh, in the U.S. Yeah, I mean, I can't say it is safe. It's I think it's sad that we're at a point where like I don't think I don't feel like, okay, I'm going to talk about my feelings, guys. I don't feel like our country's ever really been at a point where, in like my lifetime, maybe before my lifetime, but I don't feel like it's ever been at a point, regardless of like whatever political party is in power. I think this might be the first time where almost everyone I know who like would want to visit the US is literally not, like, they don't feel safe visiting the US. I was talking to a friend from Australia the other day, and they were talking about how they don't want to like visit the hellhole that's America, and it's like, what is like? It's kind of strange to be like I'm as a patriotic person. I'm very sad that our standing in the world has gotten to that point. Um, like people should not feel afraid visiting the United States. And the fact that that is a scenario that exists now is a little sad. I mean, like for me as a resident, not just because I like feeling safe, but it's like I just think it's sad that our standing in the world has dropped to that level where you know, where like somebody would feel super unsafe even visiting here. That's very strange. Dylan said, "You're fifis. That's not masculine. That's not manly." Yeah, Philip. I wouldn't blame somebody from Canada not wanting to commercially support the country right now. I kind of can't blame you. Yeah, Paul was saying it's not a little sad to me; it's devastating. Yeah, it is. It's just a weird place to be in. I hope there's a way back. That's my point. My biggest thing is I hope this is temporary. Um, I hope there's a way back. Let's see here. Yeah, Philip was saying the grocery stores have kind of marked what's Canadian made, so you can just buy specifically Canadian. Yeah, and they probably should. You know, um, I just think it's sad because, like, my own take on it is like, why would we treat our allies worse than we treat like our geopolitical rivals? Like, that's the part it's just baffling to me. It just defies reason. Um, there's a lot of weird stuff like where with the like tariffs and stuff where we've like, oh my goodness, we're in the ninth, guys. I think the Dodgers might die now. We're in the ninth, and it's the top of the ninth, and the Dodgers are at two, and Boston's at four. And generally, we're pretty good at comebacks. But if we're at the ninth and we're two down, we gotta get it together with one out. So we might lose this game, guys. The Dodgers. Um. Yeah. So to me, it's just bizarre to like. Like? Why would you take geopolitical rivals and treat them better than you're treating your allies? Like that's just bizarre to me. Um, and just the math there is insane. Like it's literally just chaotically idiotic. But again, there's like kind of a cult that's going to back whatever you know um, crazy thing they want to do. So until we see like a shift, there's really just not much we can do to kind of prevent it. But I do think it's a real shame. As much as I will tease Canadians every once in a while for being Canadian, that's always been like tongue in cheek and fun. Not, Canada's been a really good country to us for years. We've had a really amazing relationship with Canada, and just to have that like erode for no reason is just insanity to me. But what according to him, he was saying the weakening U.S. dollar will help us with tourism. Anyhow, he's like, guys, what we really want to do is get to the point where our net worth is that of the Philippines, so we have rich tourists come and feel like they can spend a lot of money. That's a good geopolitical strategy. That's just kind of insane. Yeah, Paul was saying Tigers lost today too. Tigers and Dodgers are both slumping big time. Well, the Dodgers felt like they were having a comeback like the last few games, but like this is not looking good. Tigers are having a killer run though. It's kind of sad to hear that they're having a drop too. Yeah, it's about to be game. All right. Yeah, Philip was saying we're making deals with other countries now and making ties with the EU, so it might take a long time before we build ties again. Yeah, well, understandably, because like you know, again, to just there are some norms that are like good, and like to throw away and erode those norms has like consequences that are really hard to untangle. Um, like going after your allies to where they can't trust agreements that have been made and stuff, really erodes your ability to make agreements in the future. So, like, the consequences of this kind of thing um, are definitely, like, going to outweigh the length of this guy's insane time. Did Betts just strike? No, Betts is swinging. All right. We're getting there, guys. Paul was saying, how about this giant flying saucer that's lurking? I hope they hurry up and get here. Is there a real flying saucer? You gotta tell me about the flying saucer. I haven't heard of the flying saucer. What's the giant flying saucer? Two and two. Betts is we got a guy on base and Betts is swinging, but it's not looking so good, guys. All right, so there's. By the way, you'll notice that I'm going to older pages, right? Because this is a place that exists in other pages, and so, um, what I'm doing here is making sure the colors are consistent. Paul said it's a 3,000-mile wide job. What is? Philip was saying, I really like when the shading is turned on and it has that sort of old photograph look to it. Yeah, that's the whole goal here. And the whole goal is to try to get that tinted photo thing. So yeah, the combination's really cool. I'm digging it too. I feel like it feels very like right for that era. All right, so I know there's like a. Here it is. All right, we lost. I believe we lost. Bats just struck out. I would think that's the game, but maybe I'm. Yeah. So Boston beat us. Oh man, the Red Sox. Well, if you're in Boston, man, congratulations. You guys beat the Dodgers. And we just kicked our little brief stint of winning again and started losing again. We're still doing incredibly well, but it's just like, you know, when you have a team with that many key players, you kind of expect better. Philip was saying there's a comet or meteor that's going in a weird direction and seems to be picking up speed. Wow.
Wait, really?
Is it like visible from the sky? That'd be fun to look at.
Benji! Shower in 5 minutes.
So we have some things we're working on here. Wow, Paul was saying it's like the Death Star and we're Alderaan. Fascinating. When did this come into the news? Like the saucer thing? Is this something I? I wonder if you guys are just like using this as an example of how fast misinformation can spread. Oh, okay. Paul was saying I can't find anything about it on any credible news sources. Ah, now I'm getting what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're laying down there, my dude. I do feel like on the news though, quite often you will get these like weird stories about like you know, like a meteor or something like that. All right, guys. So we're getting our background color here. Right now what I'm doing is working on the floor here. Well, I'm a little bummed that the Dodgers didn't do well. I'm a little encouraged that that the Tigers are also having an equal slump. I'm just kidding, Paul. But I do really appreciate you sharing that because you know that is part of things. You rarely have somebody hitting. You know, I don't think you ever are gonna have a team winning every single game. Kind of like it's pretty rare to have a band that every song they make is the best. Every once in a while, bands put out pretty terrible albums or hit a miss. You know, there's hits and misses. Dylan said we found out the birth of the solar system due to NASA recently. Did we? What does that look like? Are you just talking about like kind of the reconstructed photo or whatever? All right, we're gonna get this background here. Oh, birth of a solar system, not the solar system. That kind of thing is kind of insane. Like, to me, one of the things that's always been hard for me to comprehend, with like just like my mind, like there's some things that are true and factual, but my brain just cannot process or fathom. And that's definitely one of them. Is whenever people start getting into time and the solar system, it's like, while I can understand that, like when I'm looking into the sky, I'm literally seeing, you know, back in time. Like you're actually seeing back in time. Like when you look in the sky, you're traveling through time. Just because light has taken so long to get here that you're seeing planets that no longer exist anymore or stars that no longer are there. And that's just kind of insane to me. Like, I can understand it kind of, but to comprehend it just blows my mind. Like, it's impossible to it's just impossible for my brain to totally comprehend it. It's kind of the same with like whenever I read about like black holes. Like they can kind of make sense kind of when you read it, but it's like to really try to envision what's being described is like it's just beyond the capacity. Paul was saying I can't wrap my head around the vastness of space. I mean that literally. Well, I don't know, Paul. You have a pretty big head. I'm just kidding. You set me up for that. I had to respond with that one. That's like a necessary. But yeah, it is interesting when like you know, like even the genetic code is really fascinating where, you know, it's like people explain it and it's like, okay, yeah, that's like the decoding of the human genome is pretty mapped out. Like it's like they actually kind of have it worked out and stuff. But if you really start thinking about just what's happening on a molecular level, where it's like, you know, with messenger RNA and neutrons, I don't know. It's just, it blows my mind. It's bizarre. Reality is very strange. Philip said, aren't you part Irish, Paul? Yeah, I think I saw those photos. Dylan was saying we took pictures of the birth of a new solar system. Yeah, it was pretty cool. From what I saw, those photos were really cool. It's funny to me that they're... for those of you who watch this channel, you might be aware that I find it very funny and entertaining and fascinating to watch debates with flat earthers. Like, it's just fascinating to me because it is just like, it's almost like like watching cognitive dissonance just like play out, and quite often with like a lot of like arrogance too, where it's like not only are they wrong and have these crazy conspiracy theories, but they're arrogant about them. Like they're like snotty about it. Like they're like, oh, yeah, you didn't know about the magnetic poles distorting our view and stuff. Like it's just bizarre, but it's entertaining to watch. Anyhow, I saw one where a guy was like with that same attitude. They were saying, and this would tie into kind of what Dylan was talking about, where he's talking about the birth of the universe photo and stuff. They were like, one of the talking points that like flat earthers use that's hilarious to me is they use Photoshop to basically improve the color and contrast of images taken of outer space. So really, you can't even trust the photos because they're just photoshopped. And it's like the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. So because they improved the contrast of a photo, it's no longer a reliable photo. It's the funniest thing. It's like, anyhow, it's like, that always cracked me up. But that was one of the ones I saw recently where I was like, what? It's like I don't know. I just thought it was funny. The idea that they have to improve some photos makes all the photos be questionable. Was funny to me. It's almost like saying when you take a picture with your phone, you can't really trust the picture because the lens is doing some interpretation. And so you cannot trust. Anyhow, you guys, we've been going for an hour and 30. We're almost done with the colors. Probably going to go for another 30 minutes. But I am going to play a trailer while I go get some water. So what we're going to do is we're going to put on the Kemble Files one more time. This is a brand new Jim Lujan, Gary Hodges doing the voice, and Scott Strickland doing the voice. This is a brand new trailer. All right, so we're going to play that. I'll be right back.
Well, Mr. Stryker, I have you now. There is no escape. You will tell me where the Kemble Files are, or you will die beneath the crushing electric arms of my shocktopus.
I hear you chirping, little birdie, but JT Stryker ain't no stool pigeon.
Very well. You have left me no choice. Bring out the doctor. Say hello to Dr. Hodges. I'm sure you're familiar with the doctor and his work.
If by work you mean the murder and torture of innocents, yeah, I'm familiar.
I've waited a long time for this moment, Stryker, and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it.
That's what your mother said.
Well, that's a horrible thing to say. You don't even know my mother.
Don't let him interrupt you. Come on, man.
Look, fellas, we can tango here all night, but it doesn't change a thing. You're never getting the Kemble Files.
Oh, I beg to differ, Stryker. I have certain negotiation methods.
Your mom has negotiation methods.
Stop it. That didn't even make sense. That's not even... It's not applicable.
Listen up, compadres, and listen good. Option 1, I'm giving you 2 bozos and out. You untie me, I walk out of here, and everybody goes home happy. Option 2, I kill everyone in this room and then...
You idiot! You killed him!
I felt triggered. I've been learning to stand up to bullies. I just read 2 stories. Joshua Kemble's raw, introspective graphic novel chronicling mental health, faith, and the struggle for redemption. I also read Jacob's Apartment, a coming-of-age graphic novel about faith, love, and post-college existential drama. They've changed my life choices.
I'm sorry. I had no idea. I, too, am a fan of the books of the Joshua Kemble. But I'm still going to have to kill you.
Kill me with kindness?
that is the brand new trailer. I love it so much. There's so much about it that I absolutely love. Dr. Hodges is one of my favorite characters from those cartoons. Paul was saying Dr. Hodges looks like he has gas. Yes, he always looks quite... Dr. Hodges as a character is absolutely disgusting, and he's wonderful. I think it's just the voice that Gary does that kills me about it. But I also like his metal hand as an addition in that as well. And then I feel like Scott does a really good, like, spy, like cocky spy named Stryker. That's pretty great. So anyhow, there we go. That's the brand new... Paul said that is an awesome trailer. Yeah, it's just... I was saying this the other day, but it's like... I don't know what has happened in my life to where, Jim Lujan makes cartoons for me. That's just... I don't know. That's a very special thing. So thank you, Jim, again for that. I'm pretty excited about it. All right, guys, we are going to get through this page. Hopefully you guys are making good progress on your own personal projects. Paul said, Jim is a funny guy. You're a funny guy, huh? Some kind of funny guy over here? Sorry, that's just... When you say funny guy, I just instantly think of, like, Casino. It's like, you think I'm funny? Anyhow. Paul said personal projects. What is that? Oh, no, Paul, really? Well, I mean, Paul, you've had a lot come up, though. Like, you just recently had to move and stuff. I totally get that. I had to completely, like, the last year kind of transition my entire career. And even, like, start attending college again and stuff. So I totally... I relate to weird life stuff just kind of coming up. And that can definitely throw a wrench into the spokes of whatever wheel you had going, that definitely can be really tough. Dylan was saying, I wonder what else Dr. Hodges does with that glove. You don't want to know, Dylan. You don't want to know. Yeah, it's funny. At Crestline, this is a little bit of inside baseball, but at the last Crestline meetup, for those of you who don't know, we are starting to do a yearly meetup with Gary Hodges, Jim Lujan, Scott Cirkland, Corey Kerr, and Scott Lost, and Keith Foster, and myself, where we basically hang out in the woods in pretty much like a cabin in the woods. It's like a horror movie. We go out there and basically hang out and just work on our projects. And so it's a really unique experience because it's like we spend a whole weekend just plugging away, like going hard on comics and also, drinking and hanging out. So, but everybody's like super focused. So we did this last year and it was like amazing. It was just really reinvigorating. It's like you're around people. It's really inspiring because everybody's like showing each other what they're working on and stuff like that. We did podcasts about it and stuff like that. Oh, Paul said Josh called you Paul Phillip. Sorry. Did I call you Paul? I'm sorry. But anyhow, like I'm really excited about this year's Crestline because we're going to be hanging out, and I gotta say, like Gary did this voice work to kind of practice and learn to like do the voice for Dr. Hodges, and so he would like shove like I don't think it was tissues. It was like paper towels, like in his cheeks, like the Godfather, to kind of get that voice with the extra gurgliness. And when he finally came up with that voice, we were all just like dying. Like, it was the funniest voice. I can't explain how funny that voice is. Obviously you've heard it, but like for me, it hits that like Monty Python like level of funny to me. Oh, Dylan said, or Paul said, it hasn't happened yet. So, yeah, Crestline's going to happen the beginning of next month. So, pretty excited about it. So, we will have stories and probably content. I might even live stream from there because I actually have a laptop this year. So, if I'm able to get internet connection, I might just live stream while we hang out and work. Which I think would be really fun. My problem with things, events like that is I'll always forget to like stream during them because they're just. I'm sure you guys have had similar things where it's hard to think about making content sometimes when you're just kind of having fun, like, you know. But Dylan said, "I hope you guys live stream like you did last year." I'm sure we'll do some crossovers and stuff. Dylan also said, "Hi, Dylan. I'm talking to you, Paul, because now you go by my name due to Joshua. I guess I'm Paul now." Yeah, you guys are all like, my brain is gonna confuse everybody's name. But yeah, so I'm really excited about it. I think it'll be fun. Paul was saying it's like musical chairs. I love it. You guys are the best. You're the best around. So I'm excited. I'm making some progress. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me while I do this because it does help me stay focused to do live streams while I work. It's easier to not get led astray by distractions. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I do feel like quite often in art for me, I will it's like, this is definitely an art of war kind of thing, but I think this is the most valuable thing that's in that book, The Art of War, by Stephen Pressfield. It's like, I know there's some like woo-woo stuff in there that people disagree with or agree with and stuff like that, but the one big premise in that book that I think is really important for other creatives to like kind of accept and observe is the strange phenomenon of resistance. Like, the idea that like whenever you're trying to do something positive in life, whether it's art or working out or whatever it is, you know, you're often going to get just wild attacks of resistance, of like this, like internal turmoil, you guys. No, internal turmoil that like and this is the thing in that book that when I read it was just so true that's why I always recommend it to people when they're starting their creative path. Because like anytime I sit down to do art, suddenly, I mean, especially, well, not any time, but a lot of times when I sit down to do art or sit down to do my creative thing, and the same thing happens whenever I sit down to like work out, I am hit with everything I haven't thought about like all day. Like, maybe I didn't want to do the laundry, and suddenly I sit down to get creative, and suddenly I want to do laundry. Like, like I want to do everything that is not the thing I'm supposed to do. And I feel like that's a very like human nature thing. When you sit to do something positive, you're hit with this like impulse to do everything but that thing. That definitely happens before I exercise too, especially before I exercise. Because with art, like I've built a habit, and so it's a lot easier for me to just sit down and get to it. But like one of the things I like about live streaming while I'm doing it is it helps me overcome resistance. And hopefully these help you guys overcome resistance too, because suddenly I'm sitting with the thing and, it keeps me occupied and also kind of holds me accountable to actually getting the work done. Like if I don't finish the colors on this page before I end the stream, I'm just going to not feel right because I've already kind of committed to, I'm going to do this live stream till I finish this part, It just adds an extra layer of accountability. And plus it just makes it a little bit less of a lonely experience to kind of do that. So, anyhow, that's one of the reasons I like doing these, is because it helps like fight that resistance voice that's, oh, well, just watch like one episode of this thing, or, it's okay. You can kind of just do this thing instead, or like before you do this, you should do these 5 other things. Because that voice is like surprisingly powerful. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, I think if you've done the creative fight, or you've tried to be creative, you're going to experience this. It's like, if you haven't drawn for a long time, you sit down to draw and then you're like, oh crap, well I forgot to like eat dinner. So let me eat dinner first. And then you sit down to eat dinner and then it's like, well, I forgot to do this thing. So I'll do that first. And before you know it, like your day's done. And then you're like, well, I got to sleep first, but I'll definitely get to that thing tomorrow. And then it just kind of gets pushed off and off and off because resistance is winning, and the only way to combat that is just to like, at some point just kind of prioritize it and find like your sacred space or whatever where you can shut those resistances off. I don't know if that makes sense. Paul said resistance is futile. But Paul knows that battle, and Paul's made multiple graphic novels, and it's like, in order to do that, you have to really be able to get in that zone where you're like, no, I'm going to like serve my creativity right now rather than whatever those things that are coming up are. By the way, I haven't mentioned this in a while, but speaking of Paul, you guys should buy the Detective Perez books. They're great. They're like really affordable. And speaking of books that are affordable, after you buy the Detective Perez books, if you've been on the fence about Jacob's Apartment, I don't know if this deal is still up, but I saw on Amazon today that Jacob's Apartment was selling for like $13. I don't know if this sale is still on, but that's like a really good deal. That's almost $10 off the cost. So if you've been on the fence, it's a good time to pick up a copy of Jacob's Apartment. But after you get the Detective Perez, because I think the books are like somewhere around like $7 to $8. It's crazy how affordable these books are, and they're like, quite often like almost. Paul, you can correct me on the page count, but I think they're like 200 pages ish of just full graphic novel, really fun detective stories, and they're very well written and beautifully drawn. They're also a lot of fun. Like, they're not heavy books. There's definitely some heavy stuff in the stories, but it's not like, they're definitely like, I hate to say it, but like, this isn't an insult, it's a compliment. They're popcorn reads. Like, they're very fun adventure stories and detective stories. They feel very similar to like early detective novels and stuff. And they're a lot of fun, and when you read them, if you haven't read Detective Perez stories, you should, because Paul is a very humble guy, but he's a killer cartoonist. Guy's got mad skills. So anyhow, make sure you check that out. Paul said, I think I've had a similar experience live streaming while working on my last book. He said, for me, I mostly enjoyed the company. I don't find it helped my productivity, though. This helps me be productive, but yeah, the company helps me stay focused on getting the task done, because I'm not over laboring it. However, there's definitely elements of the process of making comics where there's no way I could live stream while doing. One of them is drawing the pages. I need to focus a lot more when I draw the pages, so there's definitely that comes into play. But similarly, like, but like the majority of the other steps of the process, except for little mistakes that I probably wouldn't make if I wasn't live streaming. Like, for instance, where she was taking off her gloves on this page, I initially like forgot to include her gloves, and that's like the kind of mistake that I can very easily make when live streaming, because I'm kind of just, it's like a flow state kind of thing. You have to kind of have like almost like split attention. But even live streaming can become a resistance thing where if I get too interested in a subject or a topic, sometimes I do forget that I'm working, and then I don't get as much done. But the more I've gotten used to doing it, the more it's actually been a net positive doing the streams. And then to me, it's also just a lot. It's not only fun for the company, but it's also just like a real fun thing for me to think of all of you guys out there working on your projects. Like, to me, that's one of the most helpful things that I get a lot from the Crestline meetups too. There's something about, if this is a war of art, knowing there's other people in the trenches is like a big deal, right? Because feeling alone when you're being creative can be one of the most like, one of the hardest battles to win, Like, if you're sitting down to work on a comic page and then you get a call from a friend to hang out, or there's quiz night at the bar or whatever it is, or, it can be really tempting to, to feed that natural human need for company and stuff. So like just being able to have like a community hang while working on art, I think is really valuable. But that's my own thing on it. I'm not sure if it's like that for other people. Gary said, what will you be working on during the retreat? Most likely this book. I'll be working on this book. So probably, hopefully at that point, like getting closer to the finish line, But the fun part of that is it's a lot more mobile than a lot of other projects, like, because I'm gonna have digital art with me, so, and the whole thing's done digitally, so it should translate pretty easily. And having access to my laptop is going to be a big deal, because I'll be able to hopefully get pages done, and also at the same time hang out and possibly do a live stream. I think it would be fun for all of us to live stream. I wonder if we could set it up to where we're all live streaming. I wonder if everybody brought a mic, I don't know. It'd be interesting. Gary said, I didn't know it was portable. Yeah, that's the fun part, is just on my laptop I'll be able to bring and work on pages. What about you, Gary? Are you going to be finishing up Dinosaurs versus Marsbots, or do you think you might actually be done? It'd be funny if Gary just ends up being the one guy during the hangout who's not working on a personal project. You're just reveling and finishing. You're like, just hanging out, teasing us all. Gary's actually just going to bring weights and be working out and be like, I don't know what you nerds are doing. It's like, look at these nerds over here making comic books. And then you got to cue the music. What do we got? We got a lot going on in the chats. Let's see here. Philip said, "You're very welcome, Paul. I'm looking forward to your children's book you were working on." Nice. Paul said, "I just started contemplating making a comic laid out for the phone with an infinite vertical canvas." You know, one of the best comics I've seen made for the phone is, oh my goodness. Now I'm going to almost forget it. It's on Instagram, and it's on Benjamin Mara's Instagram. And the way he is doing it, it's very loose. I love Benjamin Mara's work. It's very silly, but he does a comic called What We Mean by Yesterday, and it's like loosely drawn, but he's doing a vertical format with Instagram, like the story. I think it's called the story layout, where you can swipe, and you swipe panel by panel. I think that's a really good way to do digital comics. It's one of the most interesting ways I've seen. It's very simple, but it's like surprisingly like a very genius way to do digital comics, you know. Gary said he's old school concept sketching for the next book. He won't be done yet, but I don't have a laptop or a tablet, so I won't be able to work on this one there. That'll still be cool, though, to kind of get some progress done. Okay, we are getting this. This background might take a little bit, but we're getting closer, guys. Paul said he's been making some difficulty. Life is on hold till I find out about this brain surgery. Brain surgery? That doesn't sound good, Paul. I didn't know about this either. Gary said, "I'm really looking forward to traditional doodling and drawing. It'll be a nice break." I might be prepping a little bit for the school year too. Like I might, but most of that's like already done. It's just like reposting and kind of perfecting some lesson plans and stuff too. That might be a thing I work on. Paul said, I might just get some wires put in to enhance my powers. That's awesome. You're going to be like the Terminal Man. Did you ever read that book? That was actually, when I was a kid, I got really into Michael Crichton books. And that's the first Michael Crichton book I read, was The Terminal Man, where this guy like ends up getting hooked up to like a terminal. And then I think he ends up gaining like psychic powers and becomes like, it's been a long time since I read that book, but that was the premise of it. Was a guy getting hooked up to a bunch of cool electrodes. Philip said, "My second display tablet is now having issues. I'm doing a rant video about XP Pen. I think I'm going to try going back to using a tablet like Josh's." Nice. I mean, I find the old school tablets like the easiest to use, but it's just because whenever I've worked digitally, it might just be that I'm an old man, but like when I started working digitally, I learned on a Wacom tablet, like a traditional Wacom tablet. So for me, working traditionally, it's a lot faster to just work traditionally, but when I'm working digitally, like it just feels weird to like see, like I'm so used to working this way when I work digitally that it actually slows me down to have to be able to work and see the screen, which is really bizarre because a lot of artists, I mean, when I first learned a Wacom tablet, that was the hardest part to kind of overcome, was like the idea of like I'm drawing with my right hand, but I'm looking at my screen, and not looking at my hand while I was drawing was like really hard to get used to. But then once I did, I got so used to it that now it like slows me down to have to look at my screen, or to have to look at my hand while I'm drawing digitally. It's very strange. But it's like this is definitely like one of those like boomer problems or whatever, because it's like I definitely I just learned digital art with this. I will say this though, I've taught digital art classes at the college level and stuff, and if you're not using a Wacom tablet, like if you're doing stuff with a mouse, you're a lunatic. Like you're literally losing time. And I used to tell students, like you can opt to just use a mouse, but like, I would always warn them, like, you're going to slow down a lot more than the kids around you that are using a Wacom tablet. Like, it's just the reality of it. A Wacom tablet in itself, like being able to have a drawing pen of some kind, is a big game changer. So the only thing again, I think most things are a matter of opinion, but training yourself to use some kind of digital pen will speed up your process when it comes to drawing and creating art on the computer. Dylan said I used to use a mouse. Yeah, and a lot of people who use a mouse and get really comfortable with that are really resistant to learning the new thing. The reason I'm mentioning this is I might very well be that with the other tablet. Like maybe once I get used to it, it would pay back in spades. I don't know, but I just know that I'm like super slow on a tablet where I can see the screen, which is bizarre. But Paul was saying it's a routine procedure that helps with your tremors. Okay. Well, I'm sorry you have to go through that, but I do hope it makes your life a little easier. Because that can be, I could imagine that being pretty hard to like deal with, especially if you're trying to draw, like having to like kind of stop your flow, because like, I don't know, I feel like that's probably one of the hardest things in life, is just when your body is not quite up to par with where your brain is, where it just won't keep up, or like things that used to function easier function harder. I think that's very frustrating. So I hope it eases some of that frustration, Philip said, I did have a little Wacom tablet for years, but I never developed the hand-eye coordination. I used it to do post corrections and coloring. Yeah, Paul brings up a really good thing. He was talking about, I used to think I'd need a big Wacom tablet, but like a 6x8 was good enough. Yeah, I think a small Wacom tablet's fine. I have a little portable one too for my laptop that I will be using. So I'm not going to bring my full size. Although it's not, I think this one is a 6x8, but I have one that's even smaller for my Wacom tablet. And it doesn't take a long time to kind of get in the flow of, but that first learning curve was really hard. It did take probably about a year of using to like really get in the flow of it. But once I got it down, it's like now it's like hard to unlearn, All right, let's see here. Yeah, yeah, Dylan was saying he prefers looking at his drawing. That makes a lot more intuitive sense, right? It's just funny that it worked the opposite for me, where I thought it would be a game changer. And then I finally got one of those at my old workplace, and I found that I just shut off the screen and use it as a regular Wacom tablet anyway. Because I wasn't as fast. So it might be one of those scenarios if I've just used this for so long that it's like quicker for me. Which is bizarre. I know a lot of artists find that really strange, that That's another reason why I always use Apples too, is like just the shortcuts. Not knowing those, like that little key difference of the shortcuts on the keyboard makes a huge difference for me in like productivity. And it would be such a learning curve to like unlearn it. Like I could work on a PC, but it would just take me hours longer to do anything. Because shortcuts shave off, you know, like a minute here, a minute there, and before you know it, it's like a lot of time that I'm saving. You guys look at this. We finished coloring the page at the 2-hour mark. Oh, that sounds really cool. Dylan said he found a tablet last year that's just a bit bigger than your phone. You can plug it into your phone and use it as a drawing app. That's fascinating. I'd love to hear from somebody who actually tried that. That sounds cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys. It's been fun. It's been a lively chat. I really appreciate you guys. Oh, Philip said the XP pen was not good for him. They screwed him twice. That sucks. I'm sorry to hear that, Philip. I'll look forward to your review on that, just so I can avoid it if I'm ever tempted. So we finished the page, guys, and so I am going to call it for this live stream. I really appreciate you guys showing up, hanging out. Hopefully this inspired you to work some, or entertained you, or kept you company while you were being creative. And I appreciate you guys a lot. I will see you on the next live stream. Probably won't be doing one for a little bit because I got to do all the prep for the next page. But I appreciate you guys, and I probably will be live streaming again, most likely tomorrow. So make sure you hit that bell so you get notifications when I'm about to go live. It's been really fun. It's been fun catching up with people I haven't seen in a while, too. Good to hear from you, Philip. I haven't heard from you in a while, so thanks for coming by. Dylan, Paul, Gary, it's just been a lot of fun to have everybody stop by, and you guys are amazing, and I will see you on the next live stream. Bye!
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's live stream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.